Hey Remy, how's it going?
It's going good, It's just kind of settling in after being out of town for a few days.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what were you working on?
yeah. I was up in Bellingham, like an hour and a half north of here. I was at Western Washington University doing a photo shoot for LGBTQ Westerns Trans Day of Remembrance, sort of like couple day celebration.
Nice. Okay. Um, and what was that like, just in terms of capturing photos, interacting with everyone there?
Yeah, so I started with doing like a quick presentation about my work and sort of like a background and just introducing myself to the students. I mean, I've worked with them before and familiar with a lot of the students there. So kind of just giving them the context of like my work that day through, the nonprofit work that I'm doing. Um, and then sort of just saying like, hey, I'm just here to provide my time and my craft and the service. And it is whatever you feel provides gender euphoria or you want to celebrate yourself. Like I'm just here to take photos. So we just ended up walking around campus and just like having fun and being silly and yeah, loving on ourselves.
Nice. Um, what was like from that time? Like, what moment stood out to you the most while you were there?
I think, I mean, it was really fun to kind of go because I mean, I give a lot of presentations about my work and to all different age groups. And so, like it's one thing to talk about your work and kind of just see people be like, oh yeah, like I get that in theory. To actually like making jokes with the students and taking photos and being spontaneous to like we're taking photos and all of a sudden they see their friend that's across the street. You're just like, do you want to come get photos? Like just like really rallying people together. um, so it's really cool to see that dynamic grow and change in the process of doing it.
Nice. That is really cool. I know it's not the same, but it kind of takes me back to just my hometown. Um, in college, National Coming Out Day, they had photographers out there, and it was really cool because you had different friends who were able to go up there, able to come out, friends you didn't even know, like we're just within the family, um, and there was that spontaneity. It's like, hey, let's just jump in this photo together. Like, hey, let's come do this thing, um, and so yeah, it's taking me back to like those college days, which is really cool to hear. Um, what got you into doing portraiture for trans people?
you know I mean, there's a long story, there's the medium story, the short story. I think the from a logistical standpoint, I had a different program that I wanted to onboard a couple months ago, and just with the current administration, grant funding got cut, and so I was just like, what can I do? And looking back at it now is a blessing to have this opportunity to do that. Saying like, okay, if this program that we're going to launch is no longer ready to launch or able to be launched due to funding, like let's go back to the strategic vision and say like, okay, if this program was only going to be launched because we had money, does this program speak to the strategic vision and the needs of the community, or does it speak to the like having money? And ultimately, it spoke more towards just like this program exists because the money exists. And just like I've always loved art. I mean, my background's in art, and basically saying like what's important is to be with my people and to provide my craft and to share the bit of privilege I have right now to provide this for free. And how can I share and create space for gender euphoria? So that's really the main reason of going back to the strategic vision and saying at its core, what is the work that needs to be done and how can we do that? And it's not tied to money.
I love it. I love it. Especially because there's so many times where, you know, we get into, oh man, I want to get funding for this project to run with this vision, and it really can when you're applying for the grant, it really can become, okay, how do I prove to them that they should give me the money? And you add a lot of stuff in there to win this money, and then it kind of defeats the that original purpose and vision. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. And it gets to the point where, yeah, you add stuff and you're like, wow, I actually have not even half the amount of time that I wanted to do the actual activity. And it's just like, it becomes this long process of just trying to prove that you're worthy of the money. It's like, no, we know we are. and we know that the service is important, and we know that this is a real need in the community, and if we can do it, it's like it's a disservice to not do it.
Yeah. I think for me, like going to looking at like being queer, but then also being BIPOC, it feels like there's a lot of I have to justify my existence or me being here.
Yeah,
Um, and sometimes we forget about what it's all about. And it's just us having community and being able to be who we are and human. So very cool.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask, I know that you do portraiture of black and brown trans people as well. And so I know that's part of a larger project. I want to hear a little bit about that too, like what your experience has been since you've been doing that.
My my experience has been life changing.
Yeah.
It has been like, because I really, it went from, scrambling to really decide what's next, and then having the idea and just like making a quick graphic in Photoshop and just saying like, okay, I'm going to offer free photo shoots for black and brown trans and gender diverse folks. Like, here are some rough guidelines, but literally like I'm on my computer, I'm posting in the next 30 minutes. And I had no expectations of what it was going to be. All I knew is like, I like taking photos, I like being with folks, and I like meeting new folks. And I'm always up for some sort of side quest or new adventure. And it went from, okay, let's see what happens, to every photo shoot has been this space of seeing folks in real time realize that like they can be seen the way that they want to be seen, and they can capture the world the way they see it and not the way the world sees them.
I love it. I love it. And you'd mentioned you had to scramble to get this post up. Was this in response to the grant, or was this just life? Or
It was a lot of it. It was kind of
okay,
like, it was the grant, and then just started realizing like, or not even realizing, just kind of getting in my head of, if everything on paper seems to be working against me, like what is the future of this work? Um, and I was like, well, humans don't exist on paper or purely in paper form. So, like, why don't we go the human route first and let it just build itself? Um, and now, like, the paper makes sense because I said, like, humans first.
I love it. Okay, and it's really important. Honestly, that perspective is really important because, and I don't want to go too political because I want to make sure that this stays on us as queer people, as BIPOC people. But under the first Trump presidency, there were a lot of cuts to the arts, and that even under Biden, we were still trying to reel and recover from and bounce back. And then we're here under another Trump presidency, and we're seeing more drastic cuts, more intentional cuts. Um, and so, what you said, it needs to start from the human first, and then make that match the paper. That's really real. That's kind of the
Yeah.
mentality we need to have, especially when we're not going to have the grants. We're not going to have the same kind of funding we did under Biden or even before under Obama. That money's going to be gone quick, and if it is, there's going to just a lot more competition. Um, and I'm not going to have you say it. I'll say it because I don't want to take the brunt. I don't want you to take the brunt of it, but the people in the room who do get the funding, who do make the decisions, aren't always representative of the people that they're supposed to serve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say it too. Like, that sense of urgency, the way that we're told to experience and tell time is all, they're all tools of white supremacy. And
Yeah.
I've said this a lot, and because I've taught classes, I've had students, I've worked with a lot of youth and young adults, and I always tell them that like, you have to start thinking about art as a cultural currency, and that will help you see like how deep everything actually truly is. Of, it makes sense why all the arts and anthropology and all these things are being cut, because like, in a sense, not even in a sense, totally, storytelling, all of these things are the wind and wings of people of color, especially black people. Of like, that is a cultural currency. It's through these stories, it's through these experiences, it's through being able to tell our own time that like, there is currency, or there's trade, or there's some sort of transaction, not in the white supremacist sense.
Hmm. Exactly. It kind of goes back to there's a trend I see happening right now, and I'm not going to go into depth with it because I haven't even gone that deep. But um, It's the quarter zip trend. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Lord, we it was fun for about 5 seconds.
It was fun for 5 seconds, and then there are people who are like, "Oh, this is horrible because this," and others are like, "Well, actually, this is a throwback to Black dandyism and what this is." And I'm like, "Man, can't we just like have fun with the trend real quick?" Um, but it does go back to the storytelling. It's understanding, there was harm done along the lines of respectability politics, but also we did a lot of cool things that should have been respected, from the way that we dressed,
Yes,
from our music, from our creativity. Um, I feel like a lot of people forget that a lot of the black playhouses, a lot of the spaces that we created were destroyed early on in the 19th century. Um, People killed inside of those playhouses as they were burned down. And so, and I'm saying it from my perspective, but like that was a lot of the storytelling that was killed off
yeah,
and destroyed. Um, and then you also see with indigenous peoples who were taken from their families and forced into white families who then took away their religion, their language, their storytelling, their connection to the rest of their people. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, yeah, sorry, I don't want to keep going on too much into it, but I will connect it back and bring us back. It also shows up in the grants, who gets the funding, um, who can tell those stories.
Right.
Yeah. Um, but speaking of stories, um, there's a project that you're working on or have worked on that you've already put out, but you have Gravity, and that is a collection of stories from Black and Brown transgender people who are telling their story. And I wanted to have you tell a little bit more about that and give us like a brief synopsis of the book, and then what your findings were as you talked to everyone who participated.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the book is the the original resource of Halogen, if you will. It was like I started this work back in 2022, and it started as a docu-series. I knew that I wanted to talk about and cover sense of self and queer BIPOC individuals. And I was living in New Jersey at the time. I flew out to Chicago to do the pilot episode, and it was beautiful. It was just like very, can't believe this is happening. It's very surreal. And then about a couple weeks to a month after finishing that, that's when I got called out to Washington, actually up to Ferndale to work on a documentary about Juneteenth, and had no history of the area, no context of anything. Came out during summer. I was like, okay, I guess I'll move here. Because there were other things that were happening in my life that it just made sense to move there. It was also that weird point in COVID where everybody was like, it's gone, but it's not gone. So things were open. And I was like, I need a shift from where I was living, and I'll just take this opportunity for what it is. So I moved out here. Halogen took the back burner. And then in maybe September, October of last year, so 2024, revisited Halogen. Just like, I need some work that I love and things that I feel good about and work that I'm actually curious about and want to know more about and build out. And so I took my journal to one of my favorite spots overlooking the water and just started journaling about how do I see myself in this work? Where do I see this work going? What is the purpose of this work in the sense of what's its connection to people? And it really I came to the realization that suicide forced me to come face to face with the things I love most about myself. So we have as much to learn about death as we do about life, meaning for everything that I didn't like about myself in those times that I wanted to end, I realized I'd have to give up a lifetime of love for myself, for my friendships, my family, relationships I'm building, all of my art, all of my music, all of this stuff. And it was just this turning point of oh, this is the first time I've been able to look at my life through this critical lens. And I don't know if it was just getting older, reaching an age that I never thought I would reach, or I really don't know what it was, but I think it's just the universe said, here it is, this is the time. And so I started just really doing some more research onto that. I was like, okay, if I feel this way, what part of myself, what part of the self feels that way? And I knew it wasn't the physical body. And I was like, okay, I bet it lives in the soul. So then my next question was okay, how how do we define the soul? Because there's so many different definitions of it. And I just started talking to people of like, okay, this is how I feel, and this is kind of my experience. How does this relate to your experience, or how does it differ, or like, what do you think about viewing the soul as sort of like the indicator of life, or the indicator of how the body presents? And everybody was like, everybody that I talked to was like, oh, I hadn't like really had language around that, but that feels very similar to what I've been feeling. And so I was like, okay, now we're on to something. And so I just started talking with more people and saying like, okay, now we have like a thesis, if you will,
Yeah.
saying like the soul is separate from the physical body. And at the broadest level, trans for me, because I'm trans, I transitioned or started my medical transition um, probably around 12 or 13, and 26, about to turn 27. Um, yeah, so it's just like, okay, at the broadest level, trans for me is where does the soul need to live in order to have the most sustainable and meaningful life? Um, and people were like, oh, I like people that had never really had an understanding of what trans was or is, or like never had that like initial exposure, kind of like, I can see that. Like I that thinking about it that way as an introduction, not like the end all be all, makes a lot of sense. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm going to take the more philosophical approach to this to build like an understanding around this. So I started interviewing people about their soul and how they view their soul, how they honor their soul, and how their soul is connected to their physical body. Of like, when, because like when your soul's not doing well, your
Yeah.
body's going to tell you, like your body will be like, hey, that's crazy, like we need to address that.
Yeah, I like how,
um,
and not to, I don't want to interrupt, but
oh yeah, no,
something
no.
just to kind of bring it home for people who view it. You had mentioned, the soul kind of being on a shelf. I like to think of it as the soul has a shape. If I'm putting my soul on it's a circle. Say it's a circle, and I'm putting it on a slanted shelf, it's going to slide right off. I need to make that
Yes.
shelf sit where my soul needs to be, so it's supported. Um,
Yes.
and it feels very much like that. It's kind of like doing parts work where I'm like, what's off or what's misaligned? What do I need to do to switch it up to where my soul is supported in the vessel that it's occupying? If I if I if
100%.
I said it right, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yes. Yes. And that's like exactly it. And so I interviewed 28 people. And I wanted to actually interview both cis and transgender folks, but still like black and brown folks, just to say like, there, even if you are not trans, your soul still, it's that still the same relationship between your soul and your physical body. There's just more alignment within like the body you're given at birth, all of these different things.
yeah,
um, and so yeah, there's 28 interviews, and there's transcripts of the interviews, so it's not your typical like novel or that sort of structure book. But I had worked my last job, and then sort of like inside jobs too, with the anthropology professor at UW. So I'd worked with her, Dr. Chapman, and was working with her on how to do like more ethical transcriptions. And it was really cool. It was really eye opening to work with her and learn how she does it, and like how to preserve as much of the person and the voice and their character and their soul in the transcript. So it's the transcripts of the interviews, but I also like, I note when things happen in the space, and I note interactions, and I note feelings that come up for me in the actual transcript. So it's like we're talking, and let's say we get to either like kind of a heavy question, and I notice that you like shift one way in your chair, sit back, or like you cross your arms, or you do want to, something like that. If like I note that, and maybe there's like something outside, like a sound outside happens, so I'm noting like at what's happening in that interview, how your body's reacting, um, and sort of so people can get a sense of the space and the time that this conversation is taking place. And then really just like my notes around it, of maybe this person said that, and it's like my body language shifted because I'm remembering something that connected to an interview that I just did. So it's like I have to take note of that, you know, whatever, and then drop back into this interview to say like, yes, this person shares this similarity, but like I'm here with this person in real time. So it's really just like, how can I document as much of what's happening in real time but ethically?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love it because it ties back to storytelling, because what you're doing is you're doing qualitative research. And I say that I don't know, we haven't talked about like college stuff like that, but you're doing what people are doing at the doctoral level. And I love it because that's the space I'm occupying right now. And I'm realizing as I go through it, I have my friends who are on the qualitative side, and that storytelling, the ability to, for my friends who are indigenous to the U.S., you know, um, for those of us who are Black, um, other minority groups, when we go to try and get into the qualitative space, it is very difficult because that is us telling our narrative, and the way that you do it isn't always um, within the accepted means, the accepted way to tell that story within academia. And so to hear that you're working with, can I get the professor's name again?
Yeah, Dr. Chapman.
Yeah, to hear that you're working with Dr. Chapman, anthropologist at UW, to get these stories in a way that's representative of what they're going through, their body language, and present their fullness. That is amazing, because that's really what people are trying to do in academia right now. Um, that's one of the reason why it's so attacked right now, is because we have people like us who are doing the work, um, and that's threatening. So sorry, I don't want to like jump in too much,
Yes.
but like you're hitting on some truths there.
Yes, it is very threatening. Yeah, like I never went to college, which I'm thinking about it, but that's a whole other tangent which I won't go
It's
down.
okay. You got the dissertation out there. You've already done the heavy work.
Yes, and that's what it feels like. It felt like this book and this work feels like, I mean, the work overall feels like a living dissertation, like a living document, dissertation form. Um, and then the book just felt like, yeah, it was like a baby dissertation, because I'm like, I know I don't want to like compare work that I'm doing to folks actually doing a dissertation. um, but yeah, to be able to have like the lens of academia, the lens of like look through it from like a scholar standpoint, but also have the non-student, like on the ground, free form lens has been really freeing. It's like I have anchor points that I can reference, but at the end of the day, it's whatever I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so earlier we touched on halogen, as we had brought up gravity. Could you tell us a little bit more about halogen and how that started?
Yes. So halogen is really just, I want to raise suicide awareness for Black and Brown trans communities, and really emphasize that suicide prevention is not a late stage crisis management tool. It's not like a prescription in that sense of like you have to interact with certain things or meet certain milestones or go through certain systems to say like, oh, I've reached the diagnosis for suicide prevention or whatever. Like it is all of the little, and little not in the sense of measuring value or um, impact, but little in the sense of like it's all the little moments that add up to a lifetime of a person.
Yeah.
Anything from like milliseconds to hours to days. It's like it's me like getting dinner with friends. It's me not getting dinner with certain friends. It's going to my favorite coffee shop, or taking an extra bus to go work at a coffee shop that I haven't worked at in a while, just because like I want a certain view, or it's spending a little extra time on craft, or having hard conversations, doing all the things that really like make us human or
Hmm.
help us perform and practice humanity. Like that is suicide prevention. Um, and so the work is really just saying like anything that I can do to emphasize the little moments that add up to a lifetime of a person in turn is suicide prevention, both through an upstream model and sometimes through like a downstream response model.
Very cool. I like that. And what I like about it the most is I don't want to say too much because I don't want to overstep, but it feels very much like you're taking all the small things in life that really add up to what makes life beautiful, and you're taking time to actually savor those. Where I feel like in today's day and age, and I say this on a podcast, but we have so many things that distract us or take us out of enjoying those small window moments. I'm borrowing that from Brene Brown. I want to make sure that we're citing our people, but
Yep.
she mentions like there's window moments where you get a chance to peek into life or to people, and yeah, like going to another coffee shop just to get another point of view. That's a window moment for something that you don't naturally get to do every day.
Right.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So I wanted to ask, you touched on this earlier, specifically when you started journaling and writing down, but as you started collecting the interviews and as you've been working on Halogen, what was that moment that really made you say, this is why I'm doing this?
Ooh. Okay. So this and this is also kind of this is a good one because this is also free promo for the book. Um there was a moment where because the last job I worked at didn't end well. Um, just ended up, you know, illegal firing. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And just feeling really down, feeling like, okay, I have made it this far in my career, in my life, and like there has to be more. Like this cannot be the period in my story. And I had already started doing some of the interviews and like doing a lot of the prep work, and then really narrowed in on who I wanted to interview for the book. And this person who I thought was living in Seattle, because at that time I was living up north, I thought was living in Seattle. I messaged her and I said, like, hey, this is what I'm working on. I would love to interview you for this book. And she responded immediately and said, because I didn't say, like, I would love to come down to Seattle to do this, or like, I didn't say, like, I want to interview you in this location. I just said, I'd love to interview you. And she's like, yeah, if you ever make it out to San Francisco, like, I would love to be interviewed. And I said, did I type San Francisco? Like, did I, like, am I just losing it? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to this. Like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, it's my time to listen. I'm just going to do this. And so I booked the flight out there. I did this interview. And I mean, the interview is beautiful. If you have the book and or want to get the book, the interview, and the person's name is Naya. And I was interviewing her, sitting on the beach and just having like, one of those moments where like you feel like you've known that person for years. Like everything just feels good. And so we finished the interview and I head out to, I think I was heading to another interview or something and just like grab lunch. And she leaves me a voice note just saying like, Remy, I'm so glad that you chose to stay and I'm so glad that you're here with us. And it was just like, she's the whole reason I went to San Francisco. I'm like, there is something in cosmically happening that like is aligning. Um, and so it was not only having that realization and doing that interview, but just saying like, this work has touch points in places that I've never been before. Like my work is waiting out there for me. And so that was really special.
I love it. I love it. It's like goosebumps because, yeah, like as creatives, as artists, like the work is out there. Even now, with all that we're facing, like the work is out there waiting for us. Um, and so I kind of want to keep building on that. You know, within the Black and Brown trans community, or just Black and Brown community in general, what are you seeing in terms of areas that they need support when it comes to like mental health and suicide prevention? Not to make you the
Yeah.
spokesperson for everything, but just your observations as you've collected stories, as you've interacted with people.
Yes, 100%. I'd say very, I think very generally speaking from the context of work that I've done specifically with folks, is being able to see someone that looks like you and shares the same values and passions doing the thing that you want to do, to even imagine it possible. So really taking that and applying that to, if that's an art route, if that's going to school, if that's, you know, writing a book, if that's I just watched this like, it wasn't a TikTok, but it was a snippet on TikTok of this interview, and it was the, forgive me, I forget her name, but it was the first um, woman pilot to fly like domestic flights, and she was just saying like, people like young girls and young women don't know that it's possible because they don't see people like me. And she's like, we could be up here flying, like, and we are up here flying, but it just takes seeing someone that looks like you to even imagine it possible. So I'd say, very generally speaking, that is a huge one, of, because we have a lot of representation kind of force fed to us,
Yeah.
of, without, I know they're going to come for me, but I mean, the government has crafted our image.
Yeah.
There has been, communities have crafted our image. So I think anything that gives us an opportunity to access representation that actually aligns with us is important, is an understatement.
Yes. Yeah. And you saying like people are going to come for us, like that. I think that's what's kind of promoted, getting me to finally do this podcast is people are going to come for us like no matter what. They already are, and we
Yeah.
might as well just get our stories out there. Um, because, yeah, because that's the only way we can go against that narrative.
No, for
Yeah.
real. Yeah. And was just saying, like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, where talking about the Trump presidency and all the shit that's happening currently. It's like, this is not the worst president Black people have had. This is the worst president that white people have had. Like, and it goes back to that. It goes back to the
I mean,
the
you're right.
like the representation piece of, like, we had a president that pushed drugs into a community and then made the drugs illegal and then took everything from us. So I'm like, I will always say this, like, I please be Black in every lifetime, because one thing about me is I'm gonna have a good time. I don't care who hates me, who's up against me. I'm gonna eat good food, I'm gonna giggle, I'm gonna crack jokes, I'm gonna be with my people. Like, it's really, yeah.
Yeah. I was telling someone. I mean, like, look, being Black is not easy, but damn, is it fun.
Yes.
Man, yeah, because even just like from the food, from the creativity, from the community, the fact that you can kind of go between different communities and like there's still that like common language or common experience. Um, even as when I'm at work or when I'm in Seattle, I'm just walking down the street and I see another Black person who just exchange like the look or the nod, and there's that sense of community. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but speaking of like community, though, I wanted to kind of bring it back to um, again, as you're collecting these stories, um, you're going between a lot of different communities. But what are some areas of commonality that you really saw as you did that?
The I think the biggest area was, it brought it back to the human level of, because I interviewed folks that have never met a trans person. They either, they never met a trans person, their families are transphobic, or, any combination or variant of that such. And it got to the point where, and I also say privilege, because I'm going to say this very carefully, because I don't want to, like, be the example that folks are like, but that, like, I'll say this, like,
Yeah, yeah,
I think, in me interviewing folks, being on the more masculine side, being someone who has transitioned very young, being someone who is cis passing, which also, like, that needs to be removed from my vocabulary as well. There is a certain privilege, because I think, like, there are folks that find me more approachable, which I'm also trying to break down with them, of, like, why is that? Like, let's get into that. But I think, in the conversations that I did have with folks, by the end of it, I'm not going to say that like, transphobia doesn't exist, because that was not the case, or like a deeper understanding of it. It was more folks shifted to seeing the human first, of like, these are real people, these are real stories, these are real emotions, these are real values and visions, and everybody has their philosophy of life, and like there are, it's deeper than you think.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things that has surprised me with this go round with the. Don't want to bring it back to politics, but what surprised me is there definitely the trans community has been under the microscope, but especially like with this presidency. And what surprised me is the number of people online who have spoken up and spoken against. I'm not saying everybody has, but there's a lot more support than what I saw even as a child. Um, which I know we spoke about before we like off camera, but just even hearing being able to transition at a young age, that's not something I heard people being able to do back in the 90s.
Right.
Um, and so I say that to say like it's amazing to see like the growth in the community and people being able to see the humanity, but there is still that element of actually no, I don't want to go into I don't want to go too far into it because then I feel like it's taking away from this. I'll just say that there are those undercurrents of incidents where people try and take humanity away from the trans community and from the queer community. Um, yeah, and I'm not going to mention it. There's just a major celebrity that was, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I want to take a minute to just talk about just your experience and your journey creating Halogen and creating Gravity um, from the start to where you're at now. If you could go back in time, what piece of advice would you give yourself at the start of your journey?
I would say one of the things is I wish I documented more, because I did a lot of documentation for the book, um, but there were a lot of moments that, looking back, were really really big. Like, so the um the preface for the book is talking about my experience of like, I mean, I won't spoil too much, but basically, um, saying like, I get to San Francisco and I'm immediately drawn to the Golden Gate Bridge. And I also, in this project, wanted to go to places that had a lot of death, a lot of deaths by suicide,
Mm-hmm.
um, and to kind of like open myself up and be a conduit, and um, absorb and be able to like not give voice and I am the end all be all, but like provide a space where a voice could flow through me. And so it's talking about that experience of like, okay, I'm at the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm walking across it, and I had like no idea that I wanted to um, really walk across it. Well, like, I did, but it was one of those things where it's like, you're just gonna do this, like your brain's telling you to do this. And I was walking across it and got to like the one of the towers, and just started getting like really really nauseous, and really just like, I just feel like I something's happening. Like, I just don't feel good. I just feel very heavy. I feel very like outside of my body, and looked up at like the top of the tower, and just remembered like one of my favorite video games is Watch Dogs 2. It's based in San Francisco, and I played that game, played and replayed that game almost the entirety of lockdown. So from 2020 to like the first wave of lockdown, 2020 to like late 2021, and like I lived inside that game. Like, that game was such a safe haven for me, and it was also one of the times where my suicidal thoughts were probably 9 out of 10 on a scale of like intensity, severity, and risk. Um, and so I remember there's a mission in the game where you have to like climb to the top of one of the towers in the Golden Gate Bridge, and you have to just like, do whatever, plant a device. And there's a way to get back down in the game, like you can, take they have like paint lifts or whatever, like the window washers use.
Yeah, yeah,
And I remember in the game, anytime I do that mission, is I always made my character jump and die. And it was so, just because it just felt like a release of, I can experience death, knowing that like in my life now, I didn't want death of the self. I wanted death of things that weren't serving myself. And yeah, so I would do that, and I would ultimately kill this character in the game, knowing that like he would respawn. And I totally forgot about that, and I was like, I had no idea that 4 or 5 years later, that I would get to really rewrite the narrative of my death in real time at the location that this character that's been me has died for 2 years straight.
yeah,
um, and then just like tying that back in with Naya, who was the person that invited me out there, and her voice message to me, it's like, this person is more like, we're more aligned than I think. And I wish I would have documented that experience, because it really was like a really heavy and impactful point in my suicide prevention journey of, you know I've put a lot of trust into my craft and my vision, and I'm a very optimistic person,
yeah,
for better or for worse. Like, I'm very optimistic, and it was just like, I could not believe that, and me not even realizing that I would have that opportunity to have such a like rewriting of my story in real time. Um, so I think I would definitely, if I was going to do this again, I would go a little bit slower and really check in with myself more often.
I like that. I like that. Because yeah, a lot of times in the creating and the doing, we get lost in the shuffle, and there's so many cool things that we've encountered and that we do as artists and creatives, and opening ourselves up to just be a conduit, as you said, that we miss the magic of it all as the doing.
Yeah.
Um, I want to make sure that I'm not calling like your experience, what you had to go through, as magical, but that's not what I'm saying. But it's just more so, it's a full circle moment, and
Yeah.
you don't always get to have them in that magnitude, and that really is something special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
I honestly, I mean, I kind of would say it was a bit magical, because I think it happened at a time where I was ready to fully appreciate my life. And because I feel like a lot of folks that, go through a lot of trauma, have a lot of traumatic experiences, have a lot of intersecting identities that are attacked and criminalized and racialized, and all of that, is a lot of the formative years come from identifying in the trauma, and then you kind of reach a point where you come into yourself, or you return home to yourself, and that is where like that your identity starts to really blossom. And for years I thought, therapy's healed me, like I'm good, like I don't have anything to really talk about anymore, especially like processing the pandemic in therapy, and just like grieving things that happened as a kid that I really never thought about. It's just like, oh, I'm good. And then to have this experience of like almost kind of seeing my own funeral that never happened, and being in a position to receive that and appreciate that and look at and just say like, I am looking at my life through a very critical lens, and I'm still walking away with nothing but gratitude.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I wanted to ask. Hold on. Before I go into that question, the question I want to ask, I do want to like rewind things a bit,
Yeah.
because we jumped right in with Halogen, we jumped right in with gravity and the work that you're doing now, and you touched on something. You're able to look at through a critical lens at what you've done, like just through life. Um, while you're here in the gallery, I got a chance to listen to some of the stuff that you've done through life, and the fact that you are also a musician, as well as a photographer, as well as a director. Um, and I wanted to just hear a little bit about your creative process as you worked on music, and as you've dipped into these different genres to express your art.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I I'm a musician first. Like I tell people, I'm always a musician first. I started playing drums and guitar when I was 6, and like it's been. I mean, I've been a musician more than I've been anything else in my life, which is crazy to think about now because it's been like 20, almost 21 years
Hmm.
of playing music and writing and playing and performing and all of that. But yeah, started playing drums and guitar when I was 6, and then uh, kind of grew up in and out of bands all through elementary school up until high school. And I'm all self taught, so I play drums, bass, guitar, piano. I sing, I songwrite, I produce, I do film scoring, um, and yeah, so like I've just been playing with folks, and then I got the opportunity in what was that 2013. It was the second year that the Grammy Museum was doing their Grammy Music Revolution project, which it was a cohort of man 30, 50 kids, maybe somewhere. It was a lot of kids. And it was a 3 month long cohort. And my cohort, we got to study and learn from Matchbox 20, Fall Out Boy. We got to like work with folks that work with Katy Perry. We got to like actual real world musicians, everything from the music business side to the performance side, to logistics side, being able to just write music, learn with these folks. I remember I got to meet and jam with Seven Dust, which was like it still is one of my favorite bands. Um, but yeah, just performing at all different places. I got to play at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, which is like a very, very famous songwriters cafe or place.
Nice.
Um, yeah, just playing big stages, working with folks. And then high school kind of got a little more independent of like I have my personal style. I kind of want to branch out into doing purely my own music. Um, and then that kind of just it spiraled into writing and playing. Like I'm a session musician too, so I people can hire me to play drums, guitar, whatever on the record. um, so being able to like play guitar and have a say in like big soundtracks and for bigger artists was really cool because I was like I as a kid never imagined, you put on like your mood board and then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, I'm actually this person that I had a picture of on my wall is right next to me. Like I'm able to talk with them and share ideas. And then I got into film scoring about maybe 2016, because I was living in Kansas at that time. And so I would go back to New York every summer, and I would intern at a studio that does sound design and film scoring for HBO, Showtime, Barstool Sports, VH1, all of that. And so I get to like sit in and, you know, you do the classic intern stuff of like getting coffee, getting lunch, cleaning the studio, but then actually getting to like write music and be in the studio. And I remember we were from 2017 to 2018, we were engineering the voices for Sesame Street. So getting to like actually go in and have all the voice actors come in and we would like record the voices,
Can
which
you
is really cool.
can you comment on the beef between Rocco and Elmo? I'm just
I
really
cannot.
wanting
I
to see what it's
signed.
like behind there. Okay.
I signed. I no, I'm joking.
Sorry. it,
you
it was
know,
there. I was just like, ah.
yeah. It's listen, once you peek behind the curtain, everything seems smaller.
Yeah.
They just got to work it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm
Yeah, but
imagining a whole Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks on their talk show reconciliation between Rocco and Elmo.
yeah, you know what? Throw Oprah in there too.
Yes.
It-
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry. I don't want to interrupt. Like, keep
no,
going.
you're
But
good. That is so funny. Yeah, but it was really, it was an adjustment to like because I mean I watched Sesame Street growing up as a kid. I think I was a little I think I just missed it by a couple years, but I definitely watched some of it. So I was like enough to when the voice actors are coming in and you're like, this is a 50-year-old man. Like this is a little bit jarring, but it was so cool because I'm like, I get to take what I've associated with like a dream into real life and into practice and like be with these people. Um, yeah, and then just kind of working on we got to work on Ghost Adventures, Spider Man, um, like did stuff for Barstool Sports.
Yeah,
Got to yeah, just really cool peeks behind the curtain for sure.
nice. That was really cool, and that's I put it in your bio for the show notes, but it's something I really wanted to. I was hoping that we hit on, because just looking at your experience and all the stuff that you've been able to achieve, it's just been amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and so now that we've rewound it, I want to speed it up to present day and looking ahead to 2026. Are there any projects that you have coming up that you'd want to promote, or what are you looking forward to in 2026?
Yes. I also do want to say like
Yeah,
what I've been able to accomplish has been unreal and like far beyond my even like dream capabilities. I think I still want to give credit to folks that have aided in those opportunities. Like one of my lifelong mentors, Lauren Talajan, has like he is one of the heads of the studio that I was working at and still kind of do stuff with. Um, it's like folks that saw me and saw my vision, and going back to like the humanity piece that we touched on, it's like these are folks that I'm working with a human that has ideas and visions and passions, and we can have hard conversations, we can talk about anything, we can have a healthy relationship that includes conflicts, it includes high moments, it includes neutral moments. Like the opportunity is because I see you as a human being, and as a person, um, and then still having understanding of like anti-racism and all of that. Uh, and it's very rare in this industry to have folks like that. So yeah, Lauren Talajan, Kate Nader, just they're like those two people. I think are I keep them very close to my heart, and I still talk to them a lot. Uh, yeah, so I definitely would not. I don't want to say that I wouldn't be where I am without them, and of course my dad and my family and friends, but they've played a huge part in opportunities. But I will also not deny talent and skill. So it's a
no,
both and.
I, I mean, I've looked at your Spotify, like the fact that you have such a large catalog. There's the talent is there. Yeah, yeah. No, they saw the potential, and there's the talent. Um, but yeah, and so what are you looking forward to in 2026? And realizing that this is coming out in 2026, but what are you looking forward to in the year?
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to just doing art and Halogen for the love of the game, because I've had some conversations, and I don't want to generalize to say that it is like a Pacific Northwest thing or a West Coast thing, but I will say that most of the conversations I've had about like art versus business and kind of being taken aback by those conversations have happened in the Pacific Northwest. So I can't say that it's this area or it's not this area. It just I've had those conversations. They've happened here, and that is what it is. Um, but everything that I've been really passionate about, and I've been very protective over my art. Of I will do things. There's art that pays bills, and there's art that comes from my soul. That regardless of what that outcome of that art is, I know that I'm going to love it and keep it close to me no matter what. And I think recently, and I don't know if it's just because like things are in retrograde or this year or whatever's happening, when I talk about my art with folks, and maybe it's just I haven't found my audience yet out here, but there is always but how does that make money, but how does this like do that? And it's like I get that, and I have aspects of my art that do make money, and I have odd jobs that make money, but something so deep and vulnerable that's been cooking for years. And I really feel like Halogen's been one of those things that's been in the works for years. Even before I had the idea to do Halogen, I truly think that this work has been with me since birth.
Yeah,
Like there is something about it that has come so natural to be able to, I mean, write a book and work with folks, work with academic folks, work with like, and it's like I say this not in a like the not to perpetuate any sort of like elitist undertone or anything, but it's like to work with folks that have PhDs, to have approvals from PhD students, to be asked to come and present to health departments, to be able to do learning sessions for organizations, to talk about my work in the medical system, to talk to students becoming doctors, to talk to first year residents, to have folks really interested in my perspective and my approach to this work, all while just saying like, hey, this started as a journal entry in my notebook. To see something that came from so deep inside me have such an impact on so many different industries, it's like there's no way that this hasn't been with me since the creation of myself.
Yeah.
um, so I'm very interested and very excited to just say, it doesn't have to make money. Like I've seen the impact that it has when it's not tied to money. Sure, I'm losing a little bit of money, but if me losing a little bit of money changes the trajectory of someone's life or creates a moment that creates a soul tie or a new perspective on life, then it's not, I don't think it's money lost. I think it's an investment and a give back to my people, and also an investment in myself, because as they've had this experience, I've had the honor of meeting them and getting to know more about them.
Yeah. And keep in mind, and this is what I've learned since I've always lived on the West Coast. What I've learned is oftentimes when people see you doing your work and they're like, yeah, but how's that going to make money? It's because they want to take that idea and they want to see if it's worth them taking it and making that money. Um, I'm not saying that's going to be everybody, but that's a lot of them. That's what I've learned since living on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Um, and some unfortunately, I'm thinking back to one of my mentors. He started a project that helped a lot of youth in our county, and then it grew. Um, he started a conference for youth to teach them leadership skills, and he changed the trajectory of so many of our lives. We had cohorts of like 50 students going through every year, and it took a long time for him to get this off the ground because the people that he was looking to invest, he's a very wealthy man. So other wealthy people were like, well, what's going to be the ROI? How am I going to make money off of this? And finally, he's like, I'm going to do it myself. Or he found a couple of like-minded people, I think probably like three, a very limited amount. And then it's something that's still going on in 2025. And I think he started this back in like 2000-ish. So yeah, sometimes you just got to do it because it's what's within you, um, and let it grow, and
Yeah.
it'll take care of itself. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, Remy, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I do want to have you back because there's so many things that as we talked about it, I think you had touched on, and like I wanted to like dive in deeper. But I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I'm looking forward to see what you do in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I appreciate you inviting me on and having this opportunity. And yes, I will definitely I would love to come back and love to chat more.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.